Stepmother. The very word brings to mind the image of a cruel woman in most people's imagination, especially when it comes to a young girl just 11 years old. You'd think she must have endured every kind of hardship at the hands of this so-called other woman. But my stepmother was nothing like that. She was a woman full of warmth and affection. She spoke in such a gentle and kind tone that her words went straight to the heart. She would feed me with her own hands, comb my hair, and shower me with love. And seeing her do all this so sincerely, I couldn't help but fall in love with her too. After my mother's sudden death, my father was shattered. He withdrew completely and locked himself away in his room. For a long time, it felt like he had forgotten the world. But eventually, he realized he wasn't alone. He still had me, his daughter, to care for. Slowly, he began stepping out of his room again. He had loved my mother deeply. Her death had left him emotionally broken. At times, he spoke so strangely I couldn't even understand what he meant. He became overly cautious about everything concerning me. My every move, my sitting, standing, walking, everything was under his watchful eye. I don't know what fears haunted him, but they took root deeply. Even when he left for work, he would call 10 times a day to check on me. It became clear he couldn't manage everything alone. Eventually, out of necessity, he remarried. He married again in a simple ceremony, this time to the younger sister of one of his close friends. When my father's second marriage was announced, my maternal aunt came rushing over, visibly upset. "How could you get married so suddenly without telling anyone?" She questioned him. "We're not strangers to you. You didn't even think it was necessary to inform us. And now you've brought a stranger into the house as your daughter's stepmother?" She was clearly angry. But my father calmly silenced her by saying that he had made this decision with careful thought. After seeing how firm he was, my aunt came to me and said, "Lubna, always keep your distance from your stepmother. She can never truly be your mother, and the moment she gets a chance, she will try to hurt you." Her words planted a seed of doubt in my heart too, because I had always heard that stepmothers were cruel, but slowly my stepmother won over my heart. With her kindness, her gentle nature, and the way she never once let me feel like I wasn't her own. She never allowed me to feel like an outsider in my own home. She never reminded me that I wasn't her real daughter. When my stepmother came into our home after the wedding, she began caring for me from the very first night. That very evening, she walked into my room holding a glass of milk. I looked at her in surprise. "Lubna, you look so weak," she said softly. "I know how hard it is to bear the loss of a mother. That's why, from today, you must drink a glass of milk every night before bed." She had been in our home for just a few hours, and yet there she was, offering me milk with her own hands. As I took the glass hesitantly, my aunt's warnings echoed in my mind. The milk looked a little off in color, but I didn't have the courage to refuse, so I quietly drank it. The taste was unusual, too, different from regular milk. "Is this milk spoiled?" I stopped myself mid-sentence. She smiled and interrupted me. "Why did you say auntie? Call me Ami from now on, Lubna, and this milk is perfectly fine, fresh from the farm. My brother Amjad brought it himself so you can regain your strength quickly." Within minutes of drinking it, I began to feel sleepy. I don't even remember when she left the room. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of loud chatter and laughter coming from outside. There was a lot of commotion in the house. Curious, I stepped out of my room and saw my stepmother's family had arrived. Apparently, it was a tradition. They had brought breakfast and wanted to take her back for a few days, but the moment my stepmother saw me, she walked over, kissed my cheeks lovingly, and said, "I'm not going anywhere without my daughter. Lubna needs me." Her words surprised me. Why would she refuse to go back to her own home just for me? Her family smiled and agreed. "You're right. Lubna needs you. She shouldn't be left alone." Her younger brother Amjad came over to me, gently pulled my cheeks, and said with a grin, "Lubna, you're such a sweet little doll. If I could, I'd take you home with me." My stepmother laughed and replied teasingly, "Looks like my brother's already smitten with you, Lubna." As they were leaving, Amjad Mama picked me up, gave me a kiss on the forehead, and placed a chocolate in my hand. He must have been 16 or 17, much younger than my stepmother. Once they left, my stepmother spent the entire day chatting with me and managing household chores. From the very first day, through her words and actions, she made me feel like I truly belonged. There was something magical about her hands. The food she prepared was so delicious, I found myself licking my fingers. She even made halwa, my favorite, and fed it to me lovingly. That evening, my aunt came to visit. I excitedly told her how wonderful my new mother was. Kala, you are scaring me for no reason. She's just like my real mother. She looked at me thoughtfully and replied, well, well, Lubna. Looks like she cast a spell on you in just one day. I laughed and said, I'm serious. She's really sweet. She even made my favorite food and combed my hair herself. Kala smiled faintly and said, that's nice, but still, be careful. It won't be long before you see her true colors. A person's real nature doesn't stay hidden for too long. I nodded politely, but deep down I thought to myself, why is Kala saying all this? Maybe she's just a little too worried about me. My stepmother never let my studies suffer. She never made me do any household chores either. I spent my days either studying or chatting with her. Curious neighbors started visiting more frequently. They wanted to know what kind of stepmother she was, how she treated me, whether the usual tales of cruelty applied. But I had no complaints. She had truly taken the place of my late mother and cared for me with all her heart. Every night, she would bring a glass of milk to my room, milk that Amjad Mama would deliver each evening. She would sit beside me and tell me a story, and her voice would lull me into sleep. Drinking that milk wasn't easy at first. It had a strange, unfamiliar taste. Perhaps it was too pure or too fresh. But I never said no. I didn't want to hurt her feelings. At first, I could barely get it down, but over time, I got used to it. As days passed, my bond with Amjad Mama grew stronger too. Every time he visited, he would lift me up in his arms and we would spend hours playing video games together. He behaved like a child around me, and maybe that's why we became so close. My father, seeing the friendship between me, my mother, and Amjad Mama, felt relieved. The fear and anxiety he once carried for my well-being slowly faded away. Not long after I began drinking the milk regularly, I started noticing changes in myself. I was only 11 years old, but my height began increasing, and my body started developing in ways I didn't expect. I would often stand in front of the mirror, surprised by how quickly I was changing. In such a short time, I had begun to look more like a young woman than a child. Relatives who saw me were astonished. Wow, they'd say, your stepmother has truly transformed Lubna's life. She looks even better than before. My father was delighted when he looked at me, proud and joyful. Even the neighboring women, who had once come with suspicion, were now in admiration of my stepmother. She had won their hearts too. She had a way with people. Anything she cooked, she would share with the neighbors, always remembering to send a portion to every nearby home. If there was anyone who still wasn't fully satisfied with my stepmother, it was my younger aunt, my Choti Kala. I don't know why, but even my improved health and my stepmother's kind behavior weren't enough to ease her concerns. She would visit me every other day, asking all sorts of questions about my stepmother. One day, during one of her visits, I told her, Amma gives me pure milk every night. That's why I'm getting healthier. And yet you keep doubting her. Pure milk? She asked, raising an eyebrow. I nodded, explaining, Mamu Jan brings it straight from the farm for me every evening. I had started calling my step-uncle Mamu Jan now. Kala looked puzzled. How do you know it's pure? I told her honestly, it looks and tastes completely different from regular milk. It's strong, almost sharp. Upon hearing that, concern immediately spread across her face. Who knows what your stepmother is really making you drink? Just then, Amma entered the room, overhearing her words. Her expression changed. What are you putting into this little girl's head? She asked, visibly upset. I treat her like my own daughter, and you're turning her against me? She didn't stop there. She went and told my father everything. Hearing Amma's complaint, Abba became very angry with Khala. Jamila, he said sternly, I thought you visited us out of love for your late sister. But now I see you're trying to destroy the peace in this home. If Lubna ever grows up to resent us because of you, I will never forgive you. Abba's words upset Kala, and she left the house in anger. But I knew her anger never lasted long. She was often upset with Amma too, only to come back on her own. Kala wasn't married yet, so she used to visit us a lot. After she left, Amma came to my room and hugged me tightly. Don't ever hate me because of what others say, she whispered. I love you more than you know. Just look at how much I care for you. I smiled and said, Don't worry, Amma, I know you care about me. Hearing that made her very happy. Everything was going well. Sometimes I did miss my real mother, but whenever that happened, my stepmother would distract me, either by taking me shopping or planning a little picnic. A few days later, Kala returned to our house. She apologized to Abba on her own. What can I say? I worry about Lubna so much that I sometimes say things I shouldn't. She had brought my favorite pasta just for me, and biryani for Amma and Abba. I was thrilled. Her pasta was my favorite, and Abba loved her biryani. That day was special. It was the first time we all sat together and had a meal as a family. Even Kala joined us happily. She had apologized to Amma as well, and everything was good again. After the meal, Kala left for home, and Amma, as usual, came into my room that night with a glass of milk. She gently stroked my head and said, "Beta, your Kala is a nice person, but I don't want you telling her everything that happens in our home." Her words caught me off guard. "It's not necessary," she continued, "to tell outsiders everything about our home. Don't talk to her about me or yourself too much." That felt strange to me. Kala wasn't an outsider, she was my mother's own sister. Why shouldn't I share things with her? After I drank the milk, Amma left the room. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. With each passing day, I was beginning to look older, more grown up, and I couldn't help but be surprised by how much I had changed. I couldn't understand why I had changed so drastically ever since my stepmother came into our lives. What was happening to me? And why did she seem to have such a problem with my aunt? Almost a year had passed since my father's second marriage. My 12th birthday was approaching. Amma, my stepmother, announced with joy that she would celebrate it with a grand party and invite all the relatives. When my aunt heard about it, she whispered to me, "Wow, Lubna, your mother is very clever. She wants the world to believe she truly loves you." I looked at her with concern. I had assumed her feelings toward Amma had changed, but clearly she still carried bitterness in her heart. I had no idea what it was that still disturbed her so deeply. When Amma told Abba about the birthday celebration plans, he happily agreed. Why would he object? He was overjoyed that his second marriage hadn't negatively affected my life. In fact, he felt the very reason he remarried had been fulfilled. The day of my birthday arrived. Amma had called her family over early in the morning. She and Amjad Mamu were decorating the entire house together. Even Abba was home from work and helping. But from the moment I woke up that morning, I had been feeling strange. I kept vomiting and the dizziness wouldn't stop. I didn't tell Amma or Abba. I didn't want to ruin the celebration. Amma helped me dress in a beautiful flared pink frock she had specially brought for me. But throughout, I kept missing my real mother. My eyes welled up again and again. After a while, Amjad Mamu entered the room. "All the guests are here," he said. "Looks like our little princess is still getting ready." He came closer, looked at me in my dress, and smiled. "Wow, Lubna, I can't take my eyes off you today. It feels like a princess from Disneyland has arrived in our home." I managed a faint smile, but inside I still felt awful. He held my hand and gently led me to the gathering. My younger aunt arrived just then, and when she saw me dressed up, she was delighted and showered me with compliments. Everyone congratulated me. But just before we were about to cut the cake, the world around me began to spin. Everything turned dark, and I fainted. When I regained consciousness, my father was standing beside my hospital bed, crying. I looked at him frightened. For a few moments, I couldn't understand where I was. Then it hit me. I wasn't at home. I was in a hospital. I looked at Abba and asked, "What happened to me? Why am I in the hospital? Where's Amma?" Before he could answer, my aunt entered the room. "Don't worry, Lubna," she said softly. "Everything will be okay. We're all here with you." I looked back at my father. He still couldn't stop crying, and then he quietly stepped out of the room. I turned to my aunt again. "Why is Abba crying like that? Please tell me what's going on." She looked at me silently for a few seconds, then gently took my hand. "Lubna," she whispered, "you're pregnant. The doctor confirmed that you're going to be a mother." Her words shattered me. I wasn't so naive that I didn't understand what she meant. And in that moment, my entire world collapsed. Through my tears, I asked Kala, What are you saying? How is this even possible? She looked at me with a sorrowful expression and said, I warned everyone that a stepmother can never replace a real mother. But no one listened to me. And now look where we are. God knows what she gave you to eat or drink, and what she's done to you. And now we're facing this humiliation in front of the entire family. Her words made my mind flash back to the milk that Amjad Mamu used to bring me. It had always tasted strong, unusual. My heart began to pound. Stammering, I asked her, Kala, did my Amma do something wrong to me? She looked at me with pity in her eyes and slowly nodded. It wasn't long before the news had spread. Everyone in the family, and even outsiders, came to know. Lubna had become pregnant, without marriage, without ever being with a man. While I was in the hospital, I hadn't seen Amma once. But when I returned home with Abba and Kala, she was there. The moment she saw me, she rushed over and tried to hold my hand. But I pulled away. Abba and Kala's eyes were filled with hatred as they looked at her. Standing in front of me, Amma broke down in tears. I swear, she sobbed, I did nothing wrong. Please believe me. Abba's voice rose with fury. Then you tell me, he demanded, how did my 12-year-old daughter become pregnant? She isn't married. No strange men come into this house. She's always under your care. So tell me how this happened. Amma fell to her knees, hands clasped, begging, please believe me, I've done nothing. I swear I haven't. Bakala stepped forward and slapped Amma hard across the face. I never trusted you, she shouted. And when Lubna told me you were giving her some strange milk, I knew something wasn't right. I knew your intentions were not pure. Still crying, Amma replied, yes, I gave her milk. But it wasn't cow's milk, it was mare's milk. I did it only for Lubna's health. When I came into this house, she was so weak, fragile, heartbroken from the loss of her mother. She was falling sick constantly. I thought if I gave her mare's milk, she would regain her strength. It's much stronger than cow's milk. That was my only reason. I swear, I had no other intention. Abba stared at her with disbelief. Then explain to me, he said coldly. How did Lubna become pregnant while under your constant care? Just then, Amjad Mamu walked in. After hearing Abba's question, he said firmly, I don't know how Lubna became pregnant, but I do know one thing. My sister is innocent. I was the one who brought her the mare's milk, only to help Lubna grow stronger. My sister just wanted to be a good mother. She wanted the world to see that not every stepmother is evil. But Abba didn't believe them. Without another word, he ordered Amma to leave the house. She pleaded, she wept, but his heart did not soften. Amjad Mamu quietly took his sister away. Kala stayed behind with me. Night had fallen. I was restless. I couldn't process anything. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Abba had gone into his room. Kala was nowhere in sight. I felt suffocated and overwhelmed. I stepped out of my room and wandered through the hallway. As I neared the kitchen, I heard Kala's voice. She was on the phone with someone, speaking in a low but clear tone. It's done, she said. The job is complete. You'll get your share of the money, my aunt said over the phone. And once I marry Sadiq, I'll personally arrange Lubna's marriage to you. That other woman is finally out of Sadiq's life for good, and Lubna is severely ill. For Lubna's sake, Sadiq will have to marry again, and this time I won't let the opportunity slip away. I've waited years to become Sadiq's wife, she continued, her voice bitter. First, it was my sister who stood in my way. And once she was gone, Sadiq went and married that foolish woman who spent all her time caring for Lubna. She quietly kept feeding Lubna mare's milk, trying to make her healthier so she could gain favor in Sadiq's eyes. But I used that to my advantage. Even Lubna admits the milk always tasted strange. That was all I needed. One night I added sleeping medicine to her milk and made your job easier. Hearing those words from my aunt shattered me. The person who had destroyed my life was none other than my own aunt, my stepmother, whom I had doubted was actually the one who truly loved and cared for me. Just then, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around in shock. It was my father. He had heard everything. Without saying a word, he walked into the kitchen, snatched the phone from my aunt's hand, and demanded the truth. At first, she stayed silent, But when my father pressed harder, the truth came out. She confessed that she had mixed sleeping pills in the biryani to put Amma to sleep and had also spiked my milk. Then, under the cover of darkness, she had one of her acquaintances violate me. Why? Because she wanted to punish my father for marrying another woman without telling her. She had always wanted to marry him herself. My father, enraged, slapped my aunt and threw her out of the house. Then, without hesitation, he brought Amma back home. She had loved me more deeply than some real mothers do. Because sometimes it's not blood that defines love. It's care, sacrifice, and feeling. My father apologized to Amma personally, acknowledging her pure heart and the injustice she had endured. And as if by divine will, in the days that followed, I miscarried. The news of what my aunt had done shocked everyone. People were speechless. Who could have imagined that my greatest enemy would be someone of my own blood? Sometimes real relatives can be more cruel than strangers, and step relations, built on sincerity and affection, can become more genuine than blood ties. It all comes down to one thing: love and the intention behind it.